Well, without further ado, this is the beginning of quite possibly the most entertaining 60 minutes, maybe more, maybe less, of my professional life as a podcaster. The one and only Jim Yoss from the Ben Davenport Band is here with me right now.
Hey! Ryan Jackson!
That's me. Yes, sir.
Happy Tuesday, my friend.
Oh, Merry Tuesday. Yes, sir. So this came about somewhat organically. You reached out to me and said, "Hey, when are me and you going to do a podcast together?" And I was shocked to look at my phone and see that, because I did not think that somebody like you would give me the time of day. But luckily we're here. We have gotten on the same schedule, the same time zone, and it's good to have you on the podcast, Mr. Jim Yoss.
I am honored and flattered. And why wouldn't you think you would have me on something like this? Huh?
I just didn't know that they had podcasts up in Ohio from your neck of the woods. I didn't think maybe you understood what this was all about.
Oh yeah, man. My buddy's out there in the yard on an exercise bike. He's got to pedal real fast to get the juice from this, but we got the interweb working. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
We got the interweb working.
It's funny that you contacted me, because I saw your post from, it was either last week or a few days ago, with your words of inspiration from Mr. Scott Copeland, and I did enjoy reading through those notes, because it's been a while since I've seen Scott, but he used to play at the bar next door to mine when I was working down at the Stockyards, so I used to go see him every Saturday, and that was one of the cool things about working down there, was getting to see him and play. Basically get a private concert every Saturday afternoon, because there usually wasn't too many people there. But yeah, it's good to see that from our good friend Scott.
Is that when he was playing Filthies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every Saturday? Yeah. I can only imagine the brilliance that was just pissed off over that stage of just random people coming in, sitting down, trying to get a beer, enjoying the Disneyland atmosphere of the Stockyards during the middle of the day, and then Scott Copeland sitting there.
It's
stained underwear.
Stockyards is the happiest place on earth. I remember going down there. I was kind of numb to it whenever I was working there, but I went down there after having stopped working there, and it's pretty jarring when you just walk around and see everything. Of course, we're talking pre-pandemic, but the Stockyards was like the closest thing to the Wild West that you could get in the DFW. But yeah, every Saturday afternoon, private concert from Scott Copeland. It was some incredible times.
Oh yeah, the first night I spent in the Stockyards was back in 2005. I rode down. That was the first trip to Texas. And my first night in Texas, we stayed in the Stockyards. And it kind of became a habit for me. Every time I was there, I made it a point to be the last one out on the street at like 3:30 in the morning. And like the bricks would get real damp and it'd get all spooky and shit. And like there'd be like some sort of fog blowing through it. It just, yeah, I do believe that's the first place in Texas I plugged in, down at the White Elephant, on one of their Tuesday night songwriter showcases. Yeah, I love it's the real deal, man. That's where all the ghosts are of that place,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Was you at Thirsties working then?
Yeah, that was about the 18-month period that I worked over at Thirsties.
Yeah.
And that was exciting times. Sundays were always fun, because that's when we'd all kind of bar hop. It's like we were there all weekend, but then like Sundays was always fun, because it was like just the people that were like local, like the different bartenders and like the artists, that they just all converged down there on Sundays, and we would just walk around to like all the different places. Basement Bar is probably one of my favorite places. That place is awesome.
All-time top 5. I got to play there. Two of my buddies came down from Ohio many moons ago, and we went into Fort Worth to party. And when we went down into the basement bar, I said, listen, fuckers, do not embarrass me in here. I'm known. And later on that night, I was outside puking on the steps of the basement bar. And if you puke on the steps of the basement bar, that's the only way into the basement bar.
Yeah.
Them guys, they didn't embarrass me, and we all had a swell time. Yeah. Yeah, when I first came down there in like 11, for those 2 months, I was in Fort Worth. I actually got snowed in there when they had the Super Bowl. It was Packers and Steelers.
Yep.
I went into town to do a songwriters deal, and that's when that storm blew in. And I was there like 5 fucking nights. It was great. Had to use my guitar case as an ice pick to get down the sidewalk. But, oh, yeah. You spend 5 nights with a sexy gal like that, you never forget her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was the craziest thing because they were having the Super Bowl at AT&T Stadium. I was actually living in Arlington at the time, so I was there for like the whole process of them building that stadium. And then they were going to have the Super Bowl, and this huge ice storm blows in like the exact week of while everybody's going down there. And it just, I mean, it was a big ice storm. And yeah, that was like the crazy thing because it was happening right at when they were having the Super Bowl. So you are from Ohio, right? Like that's
yes, sir.
That's where like your hometown was.
Yep, born and raised. Eastern, I refer to it as the western coal hills of eastern Appalachia. So we're like, I'm one county over from the Ohio River, like where Pennsylvania and West Virginia all meet. Like they refer to it as the Steel Valley. So yeah, that's where I grew up, man.
West Virginia, I've never heard that before.
West Virginia?
West Virginia. Is that a thing?
Oh.
Or did you just kind of say that?
No, my nose is all stuffed up. It's fucking like 20 degrees here.
Yeah, how cold is it there now?
I checked earlier. It was like 30 degrees, and it says feels like, and it said fucking cold, so it was like 20. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to get down to 27 down here tonight, so it's pretty cold down here, but I imagine it's a little bit colder up there.
Yeah. 27 in Texas is cold because it gets in your bones. It's like a real cold because of all the rocks down there.
Yeah.
27 up here, like you can wear a t-shirt. Speaking of t-shirts, I was gonna wear my Billy Hartman one, but I was too cold, so I had to bum it up.
Well. That's a missed out paid advertisement opportunity for Billy Hartman or Hartman.
That's what I was thinking. I had laid out a wash it and everything.
Sorry, my goat's like banging on my wall. So you grow up in Ohio and you come down to Texas. I'm trying to think of the first time I met you. I would imagine it's probably the BossDocs open mic night, which is funny because I had Seth and Kelton on the podcast last week, and that's kind of where I met them. So I'm kind of making the rounds of having podcasts with everybody that I met at the Stephenville open mic night.
That's a lot of great careers, man. I mean,
yeah.
Fuck, you have to go through agents to reach some of those folks. I mean,
for real,
the sky's the fucking limit, But that's probably where it was. Because I remember when them guys first came in. Seth and those dudes, because they were called Manson Family Reunion.
Yeah, that was their first name. Mm-hmm.
And I got one of their CDs, and because they came in and was just doing something totally different. It wasn't some asshole, strumming a G, singing about fucking blue bonnets and Texas highways. Like they were doing something different. I remember telling Stanley, I was like, these fucking dudes are legit. Like, and that's what was so cool about that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of talent in Stephenville at that time. I mean, there's been a lot of talent in Stephenville for a while, but definitely around the era when you and I were first kind of getting acquainted there, there was definitely just a lot of talent there. I mean, I remember playing open mic nights and having to follow. Oh my God, I just spaced on his name. The guy that the guy that sang on The Voice, not Joey Green, but. He was on there a couple of years before.
I have a great story.
Matt Wayne. Yeah.
No, Matt Wayne wasn't on The Voice.
He was on one of them. I think he tried out for it, but
I
yeah, I
mean,
the point I'm trying to make is like, playing the open mic night, you never know who you have to go after. It's like, oh, you're going on after Matt Wayne tonight. It's like, shit.
Nate Clayton's gonna play a couple songs before you get up. You know what I mean? When I got there, I came to Stephenville New Year's Eve of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I came down for like 2 months, and I'd been there. Like, I had been to Stephenville, stayed in Stephenville, went to Larry Joe Taylor, a couple years before I even started playing music. And when I went down there, it was such a blessing because everyone was so welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
They were just welcoming, like Mike and Matt. That's when Six Market was starting to roll, and Red Shahan had come to town, and Billy and them guys had the Hacks, and there was a young Wesley Holdsford, and I couldn't have picked a better. I knew where I was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, when I left here, I could have went anywhere, and most people would have went to Nashville, you would think, right? Or I don't know, Fort Worth. I was like, fuck that. I want to go to Stephenville. It was a absolute, like you mentioned, Matt. I met Matt that week of that storm of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I met him at the White Elephant, and hell, I was in his wedding. He was in my wedding. Hell, worked for him, played with him, a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Got my ass handed to me every Thursday night over in Joshua, Texas, at a place called Renegades. There was a former strip club, and they still had the poles up. So they get a little rowdy, get to dancing on the poles and shit, and and that's Johnson County. So, but every Thursday night he'd ham ass to me up there swapping songs and stuff. Yeah, it was and Dolly Shine. They were, you know what I mean? It was just
it's like I honestly forget about it. Like, you bring up Red Shahan, it's like, oh yeah, he was always at the open mic nights whenever I first started going there. Like, you bring up Dolly Shine, like Dolly Shine kind of, hung it up in my opinion, like, too early, but you could say the same thing about Six Market. They're just kind of one of these bands. But it's like, God, there was just so much talent in the area. It's absolutely insane.
As we're getting through this conversation, we're going to talk about Stephenville, and talk about Stephenville. We talk about it, with gratitude and love, because it was great. And so, the guy that got out of that town, even though he's not from there, but he started coming into open mic nights, and he was good. And now he's fucking megastar, megastar. And that's, when he came down, that's the first place he started playing was at BossDocs. That's Wetzel.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Giovanni coming in there at 19 years old, 20 years old, getting drunk and playing. And,
yeah.
and that's the sad part about this, man. Like, the magic of a stage, that's the hard part of, not being out and plugging in and stuff.
Yeah, that's why whenever I ran the open mic night there for like that 6-month period, I always made time to set up the stage, because I just felt like there were just so many people that performed on that portable stage that I just wanted to make sure it's set up every time to give people an opportunity to be on it. Although, like, a lot of people didn't really see the point, but
I understand the point.
Yeah.
I think maybe one time I even commented to you that you did put up a stage, how much I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Because that's a shaky fucking structure.
It is, yeah.
Like, you get 200 pounds, like, you get to getting on it, man. The fuck thing's moving a bit. Bass player's drunk trying to keep his shit together,
Yeah, and I know from, it was a very shaky stage, and I know from assembling it that there was definitely a few legs on there that were loose and that were ready to go in any second. And but I just that was the charm of it, though. That was what you enjoyed about it.
I remember coming down there. Oh shit, 2006. Reckless Kelly played there, and they played on the dance floor. Like, there was no stage.
Mm-hmm.
This, like, if you were looking up there, they were off to like the back right corner. and they were just fucking eye level with everybody drinking and dancing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this beats fucking me here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen some pretty large acts coming through there. You mentioned Wetzel earlier. Like I grew up in Stephenville. I moved away for a few years, and then I moved back. And whenever I moved back and tried to start getting back in touch with like the music scene, like Wetzel was kind of getting his start there. And I actually saw them like playing at BossDocs one night, and there was like maybe like 30 people there, you know. And then I remember they were doing like the Battle of the Bands, like that the radio was putting on. They had came in runner up like 2 years in a row, and then like they finally got like an afternoon slot like at Larry Joe Taylor one year. And it's like I've seen that progression like from its infancy. Like I mean, I've even ran sound for him before. Like I've seen it all the way coming through. And it's funny that like all these people like talk shit about that about Wetzel, but it's like I've seen them personally pay their dues. You know, if he gets pegged as an overnight success, like it's really a wrong assumption, because I've seen it like the entire way through it, and I know it's anything but like an overnight success, and people kind of suggesting that he doesn't deserve the success that he has. I think the thing I'll say about the Texas music scene is it rewards time put into it. Like if you put enough time into it and you dedicate yourself to it enough, it will eventually pays dividends. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of acts. And that being said, you do have to put, like, nobody just blows up in that particular Texas music scene. You really do have to put in years of work before people will really start taking you seriously. And I feel like there's a lot of misconception about that type of thing.
You man, your same perspective is my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about Texas. And, you know, the music of Texas, I believe things are changing because I see it really falling off. You know what I mean? But they love to sing along. And there's a lot of real young bands out there that's trying to, you know, impersonate the one that was authentic. You know, and it's kind of always been like that. Like it goes from, all right, we're going to sound like Robert Earl Keen, and then the next one's trying to sound like that. It sounded like that, and it's just this chain. It's just falling off so much that it's just, you know, because the music of Texas, man, that's all I grew up on, like Willie Nelson, and so, you know, I hold it in a high regard, and I think sometimes that there's, you know, people should push themselves more and understand where they're at, and, you know, the music that they got to represent. But yeah, when it comes to Cove, man, I remember I ran sound at Filthy's one night, and they all opened up for Mike, and I was like, shit. And they had a harp player back then, but it was just it was real, and that's what, you know, people in Texas don't, you know, they ain't gonna smell bullshit, let alone take a taste of it.
Yeah.
So if you're real, they're gonna love it, and that's, you know, I got to experience that. Just being me, just be who you are, and they will love you. They'll appreciate you. And down there, they're gonna tell your friend. They're gonna tell their friends about you. It's that doesn't exist everywhere. And I think that's really taken for granted. Artists in Texas are really lucky where they're at, because it's you know, live music is still the heartbeat of it. You know.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny, like my ties with Texas music. Although Texas music is it's weird to define it with a particular name, because it's like when I think Texas music, a lot of people that I think of are actually from Oklahoma. So then you start getting into calling it red dirt, and really like calling something Texas music is different from like maybe music that's coming out of Austin. But anyway, like when I typically use red dirt a lot more than I use Texas music. But anyway, yeah, like I've always been a huge Cody Canada fan. Like growing up, I think a lot of people that know me know that I was really big into Cody Canada growing up, and I still am. But yeah, then growing up, going through high school, my brother was the sound tech for Cody Gill Band, and Cody Gill Band was like kind of a band that was a lot bigger than I think people give them credit for, because this is like before Six Market, this is before Wetzel and like all that. And
another Stephenville band.
yeah, yeah. And they got to open up for Cross Canadian Ragweed at Lone Star Arena one year when I was like 15, and I got to work their merch table and go backstage and get like Cody Canada's autograph and stuff. So that was like exciting for me. But then it's like my ties to Six Market. It's like my brother-in-law is another like songwriter musician when he was going to Tarleton, and he's written a song that was on Six Market's last album. And they, were all like real good. Like my brother was the sound tech for that band early on, so it's like I know all those guys fairly well. And then to see the scene evolve like from that into what it is now. Like I can only imagine if back in those days, Twisted J was a thing, like Twisted J Live, because it's like all you could do back then was either play BossDocs or City Limits. But it would have been fascinating if with in that era. With those bands, like having Twisted J live and having a large venue that's not City Limits, but interesting to think about.
Yeah. Now, you said that on their last album they released, he's got a song on it. What's his name?
Casey Pruitt. It's the one I forget I'm spacing on the name of it, but it's the one that's talking about his ex-girlfriend's like getting married.
I think I know which one you speak of.
I'm spacing on the name of it right now, but yeah, that's actually.
I know why you're spacing, man, and it's okay. It's the effect of it.
But before they met up with Ben, they were wanting him to like actually be their bass player, and then they ended up getting Ben, and then Ben's like the nicest guy like I think I've met in the entire music industry. Like I love Ben Hussey so much.
He spending a considerable amount of time with him, and he's like, when I talk about songwriters down there, I'll always mention him. When he had that band Champ and the Yokels and they'd play at the pub, Ben Hussey's one of the best frontmen I've ever seen in my life, by far. Like, he's just, I got to see him last year. I went to Pittsburgh and American Aquarium was playing, and I reached out to him and got to go to a show and see him for a little bit. And he's 11. Like we were talking about before we started the show about how time passes and things change. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, it was 2011, 2012, 2013. Everybody was running a gun and whooping ass. And, now he's got 2 little boys and happily married, and he's just really living a blessed life, Absolutely.
Yeah, just whenever I see him, I'm always like, I don't usually go up to him, but he usually takes the time to like come up to me and start talking to me. I'm like, dude, like, how do you know me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always just like one of the last times I talked to him was after Six Market had played the opening night at Larry Joe Taylor. I guess this was, they canceled it this last year, so I think it was the year before that. But anyway, they were playing T-Birds, and like they burned the house down. Like the whole place was packed, and like everybody was singing their songs and everything. And I was just like walking around at the end of the night after all the music was done, and he was pulling up in his truck, and he like stopped and rolled down his window and was like asking me about the show and was like taking the time to talk to me. I'm like, dude, this is, I don't know, I really appreciate the shit out of that guy.
Oh,
and asking me audio questions and stuff, like he cares about my opinion.
Yeah, he knows that you've been dedicated to your craft.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that's pretty well known about you.
Well, yeah, everything that him and Josh are doing out at Melody Mountain Ranch. Like I remember when that studio was just opening up, and then just hearing all the music that's been coming out of it, and hearing it on the radio and hearing it, and just the fact that with that studio I've put so many artists kind of in the spotlight, I think is pretty incredible.
Oh yeah, well, they had it when they left the studio was at Mike Stanley's in Stephenville. It was called Hometown Heroes.
Yeah.
So that's where I recorded. And then they built a studio out the compound. Out there were Red Shahan and the Bronc Riders and the Saddle Bronc Riders. They had a studio out there, and they did several projects out there. And I got, because it was right across from where I was staying, so I'd, roll one and get a Dr. Pepper and go sit and listen and bullshit with them and stuff like that. But yeah, it's I was, and I think about it, like, I really couldn't have picked a better place to come. I really couldn't have. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. They say home is where your heart is. Well, then my home would be Texas, because that's where my heart is. That's where that's where the proof of my manifestations are. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm going to go down here and do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then I did it. So it's kind of like, it's the truth of the proof down there,
So what specifically brought you to Stephenville though? Was it meeting Matt Wayne, or like what was it?
I'll tell you what, man. It was, and I mentioned about February of 2005. This is how it happened. This way it's documented. I was working on the railroad. It's wintertime. It's nasty. And it was a Friday. I went up to my buddies. They got a cattle ranch here in Ohio. And he's like, hey, man, he goes, you want to go to Texas? I was like, fuck yeah. When? He went Sunday evening. He goes, we got to take that horse trailer and 2 horses back, drop them off, and then we're good. We got a free truck. Me and another dude's going down. You want to ride with us? So I got home, called the railroad, took an emergency week of vacation. I loaded up on Sunday with an open 5th of George Dickel and another 5th of George Dickel. And probably 30 hours later, it wasn't, because we stayed in Fort Worth the first night. Next day, we went to Stephenville. And as soon as I got to just driving from Fort Worth, like going out through Toller and that, I'm just sitting in the back seat looking at the sky thinking, man, I've never seen a sky this big. And it was blowing my mind. And it was just immediate infatuation and love with it. Just immediate. And so whenever I had money and vacation time, that's where I went. I'd fly into Fort Worth, party in Fort Worth for a night, then go out to Stephenville. Because I knew a couple guys. One is from West Virginia. He's been living down there for a long time. He's an artist. He does artwork for Twisted J, too. Name's Blue Doran. And met him through my buddies up here. And then I met a guy named Nick Pernocus. He's got that ranch out of town. Remember where my trailer shack was? Out there on that dump road? Well, I rented off him. And so, like, when I came to Texas to play music, I didn't know anybody. Like, I knew Blue and Nick, and it wasn't like they knew anybody, like, that was involved in, musicians or songwriters. So I didn't know a fucking soul. And I came down, I said, I'm going to try it for 2 months. I'm going to try to book some gigs and see if I could do it. Now, at that time, man, like, keep in mind, I'd only been playing guitar about a year and a half. Like, that was it. Like, picked it up. Here we go. Started writing songs. So I was fucking green. Bad green. I remember I did a gig at the Greenwood. I did a gig at the Rockin' P. The old Oakdale Steakhouse, which is out on the way to Larry Joe's on the left-hand side. You know where I'm speaking of?
I honestly, I don't think I've ever heard of that Oakdale Steakhouse. Is it before you hit the lights?
Yeah, it's like that place on the left that had like a little ice cream shop and serve food and stuff like that. It's like a bunch of old white buildings and stuff on the left-hand side. Played out there. So I then went into Fort Worth and played a little bit. But I went out to the Agave one night because every night I went out. Like whether I was going out to see Limits, if they had a songwriter showcase, whatever. Mike Stanley's open mics. I was going out every night, sitting by myself, drinking a beer, listening, watching. And I went out to the Agave one night, and they were having, it was Clayton, and a couple other guys, and Matt Wayne. I had no idea who the fuck Matt Wayne was. I don't know anybody. I'm sitting over in, like, the restaurant side of the Agave. Like, remember how you'd walk in, there'd be the bar and tables and stuff? And them guys are over at the stage. and I could look through like the wood railings. There was like, they had like this hole in the wall with wood railings. And the only one I could see was Matt. And they brought a tray of wild turkey shots. And I watched this dude do 3 in a row. I'm like, dang. So it's no shit.
Be like, dang, that's expensive. That's like $30 worth of shots.
Well, that motherfucker ain't buying one. You know, you got people bringing him wild turkeys. So next thing I know, it's his song. And he plays Old Violin by Johnny Paycheck. And I go out to my truck, like I get up, he's done, I get up, go to my truck, and I call my dad. Forgetting about the time difference, it was probably 11:30 at night. Woke up my dad, and I'm crying. I'm fucking crying, bawling in my truck. And I told Dad, I said, hey, I'm going to move here and do this. He's like, why are you calling me at 11:30 at night? I was like, because I just listened to some dude sing Old Violin by Johnny Paycheck. Johnny Paycheck's from Ohio.
Uh-huh.
That week, that Friday night, or the following Friday night, I believe, I walked in the White Elephant Saloon during that storm. Walked in and recognized the voice before I got around the corner. And it was that same guy that sang Old Violin.
Yep.
I walked up to the bar. He walks directly off the stage up to my back, sticks his hand out. He goes, hey, man, my name's Matt Wayne, and you got gray hair. And I was like, here we go. Now I'll send in Suburban like an hour later smoking weed with the band and found out his old bass player played for Shaver. And like, literally, that was it. That was it. And I've shared that story with him over the years. I mean, that was the reason that I took and chose to come to Stephenville. I was like, all right, ball up and do it. It was because that night out the Agave. And that fucking Whistle Dick singing that song.
Dude, he's such an incredible talent. I ran sound for him at they played at Thirsties. He had a trio, and then he had this other guy jump up there, one of the other guitar players that would just go around at the Stockyards. It was really good. Say what?
Tall dude?
Yeah,
Randy
the real tall
Gray?
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for most of the night, he was playing just as a 3-piece, and you know, we usually had the bands play like 10:30 to 12:30. You know, it was like around 8 p.m. He comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, can we go on?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, do you think y'all can go till midnight or so? He's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about that." And they played from like 8 to like I had to kick them off the stage at like 1. I was like, "Guys, like we gotta start like closing up." Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a pretty fun night. I really think he's got probably one of the best voices out of like anybody in that scene. I mean, like him, Joey Green. You know, there's a short list of people that are just like, I mean, there's a lot of incredible singers, but talking about like just world class like type guys like that. I definitely think he's on the list.
Yeah, make you cry, give you goosebumps. Yeah, I worked for him for about 2 years as his road manager. I heard a lot of fucking George Strait covers, a lot of them. But man, every gig I ever worked for that man, was him as my boss, I probably shed a tear every gig or got goosebumps every single time. He's that good. I claim he's the best because I got to see him in situations and like doing things, and I was like, I went and seen Garth Brooks when I was in my 20s. You know, like he's got that like. That special thing about him, you know. Yeah,
no, I agree. I mean, yeah, I would probably say he's the best out of people that I kind of somewhat know personally. I mean, just did my meager interactions with him, but like I said, him, Joey Green, like I could think of a few others, but just absolutely incredible. But you and I have played a few shows together. Let's talk about the Ben Davenport Band and what the Ben Davenport Band is doing here in this next decade, the 20s, the roaring 20s that we're knocking on the door of, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Do you want to know where the name came from?
I think we'll go ahead and run that story for those who are unaware of how the Ben Davenport name came about. So okay. Yes, proceed.
Okay. So this is back probably February 2005. I was at the store, and they had just released season 1 of the Dukes of Hazzard on DVD. And so I call my friend, my brother, my compadre, a gentleman by the name of Chad Clay. I said, bro, they got season 1 of the Dukes of Hazzard. He goes, if you fucking crack the plastic on it. And I was living with him because when I got to Northwest Ohio and work on the railroad, he lived out there. So I would go, instead of staying in a shitty motel room, I'd just go stay at his house because I was best friends with his older brother. So I get up there, like on a Sunday evening, we're eating like old fucking dried up hobo stew and drinking Jack Daniels out of the bottle. And in one of the opening scenes, Cooter Davenport, who's played by the actor Ben Jones, rode his motorcycle through the front door of the Boar's Nest. And he had duct tape on his mechanic shirt, and it said Cooter. So Chad pauses it, and I was always using fake names. It's a good way, back then you could have an alias and not have to worry about somebody fucking go Googling you or trying to find you on Facebook. So I had some aliases to me, and he pauses it. He's like, dude, he goes, Ben Davenport. I was like, what the fuck's that? He goes, that's your new alias. So I went in the bathroom, I looked in the mirror, I was like, Ben Davenport. I was like, I think that shit'll work. And he was a drummer. Okay, now he never played in no rock bands. High school drummer, always beating on a 5-gallon bucket, always beating on the dash drummer. And he goes, one day we'll have a band, and we're going to call it the Ben Davenport Band. Because I was trying to play guitar back. Like, I was writing, but I couldn't write a song, so I was just writing poetry. And I knew like 3 fucking chords. It wasn't a 1-4-5. Couldn't spell rhythm, let alone find it or maintain it. And he got killed the day after Memorial Day that year of 2005. So fast forward like 4 years, about 4 years, then I picked up the guitar. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And about 6 months later, I was at a microphone saying, hey, man, these are the songs and the sounds of the Ben Davenport Band. And I just always, even though people's like, oh, that's confusing and bullshit like that, I don't give 2 fucks. Like, I'll stick with that till the day they put me in the ground, My belt says Ben on the back, so, But
yeah. I guess I had heard that story before, but I didn't know the element of your friend passing away. So that is a very nice homage to your friend there.
Yeah, and it makes me stay aware of not embarrassing the name or disrespecting the name or putting a negative force behind it because, of his family. And, that's why it does help keep me on the track. It does. Because, I realize that, making that statement that, I kind of got to live up to it. I kind of got to represent us with how I think we would have been,
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, I think you're doing a good job of that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's no members of the band, and we have no dates booked currently. But there's a pile of fucking songs. And
well, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of bands that can relate to that right now.
Yeah. But no, just I have no idea. I've got to play. The last gig I played was March 13th. It was a Friday night. And then the next day we had a show booked. I have a guitar player up here. And shit got real weird that day, like real weird. And, I'm calling the bar and she's like, listen, like there may be nobody in here tonight. I said, well, you ain't going to make the money to pay me. So let's just, I'll give you a call next month and we'll reschedule it. She's like, hey, it sounds great. It's like, cool. And then that was it. That's been it. I've done a couple private functions. I found an old honky tonk up here that lets me go in and play. I can walk in the door and plug in and play for tips. So that's been therapeutic. But yeah, it's a hard thing to go through when like everybody has to sacrifice to do. It's what level of sacrifice are you willing to commit to this life? Mine's pretty measurable. So for me not to get that drug of being able to resonate and express myself, it's fucking tough. I know a lot of folks are like, hell, I'm making all kind of money. I'm getting all kind of streams. Fuck it, whenever. But for me, you know, I sacrificed a lot to be able to become this and do this. Not playing my songs out has been, I would describe it as probably the first torture I've been through.
Well,
literally.
I mean, from my perspective, it's like I've been working so long, or for about the last 5 years, working in the live sound and like live production, and I was like finally getting to where I was kind of able to make somewhat of a career out of it and be able to like make a living off of it. And then all of a sudden, my last real gig that I did was for the Houston Rodeo, and it was like for the week leading to the Houston Rodeo. We had this little thing out there for TX Whiskey. It's actually where I got this shirt from. And
nice shirt.
But yeah, it was like right after we got done with that, they announced they were canceling the entire rodeo, and that was like when everything kind of started falling in. And like that's really been it. And it sucks. It sucks for me, and it sucks for like all my friends that are in the industry, because it's like no, like there's just nothing out there. Then a friend of mine was still working at Lava Cantina in well, like a lot of these restaurants that have managed to stay open, a lot of these venues that have managed to stay open are now like shutting down. Like there's a couple that are shutting down till February, but it's like, what's really going to change in February? And it's just like, yeah, it's caused me. But at the same time, it's like it just comes down to how you're looking at it. Because I think right now I'm in a better situation than I would have been previously, and yeah, I mean. But it's been a weird year for me creatively, just because I haven't really had the desire or the creative spark, so to say, and I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that. But I think it's coming back for me, or at least I hope that it is. That's why I've been trying to do more creative things like this podcast and the YouTube channel and things like that. And, you know, I think I can relate to what you're saying about torture, just because I think for you and I as creative types, it's like we have to have an outlet for like this whatever internalization of whatever we're feeling. Like, and for me, it doesn't necessarily matter what that outlet is. Like this podcast right now is an outlet for me. It's like, you know, I try to, and it's like, but it's something for people like us that we have to have. And for me, at least, it really doesn't matter the amount of success or like whatever I'm getting from it. It's just like a necessary thing. And it's so funny because like I was like in this kind of debate online earlier this year, because people were talking about Spotify streams and how Spotify wasn't paying, you know, the proper whatever to their artists or whatever, which I agree with. But you know, I was making the case that you're a musician, you make music because it's like your passion, and as far as making money off of that, you know, you have to find different revenues and ways to do it. Right. And I think that's what this year has been for like all artists. I think all artists have had to look in the mirror this year and ask themselves like why they do it. Like, what is it? Is it the financial reward? Do I like have to have this? If is like, you know, where does this rank in my life? And you know, maybe there's people out there that needed to get reconnected with it. You know, maybe I myself am in that boat. But I think this year has been a very reflective thing as far as revealing everyone's true intentions when it comes to making art. You know, and I hope that in the coming years, maybe we might see the after effects of that. Because at the same time, being an artist right now is really exciting, because it's almost as if everybody's on a level playing field now, which is really really fascinating. So it's like the opportunity is there, but it's just a matter of navigating it correctly, I think. I don't know.
You're right. See, for me, I used to get, because if I was going to do it, I was going to do it. Like, and I become like, if Degenerate folk singer was in the fucking dictionary, I'm the poster right beside it. Like I've developed that, literally went to the extreme of that life. But back prior to the PETA, man, if it was a Friday or Saturday night and I didn't have a gig booked, I was an asshole. Like, whatever I was doing, I didn't want to be doing. Like, I'm like, I'm to be plugged in, telling somebody to shut the fuck up, and I'm going to play my songs, and this is what I do. And like you were saying about, you were just getting at the point as a sound engineer where you're like comfortable, everything's working, you're getting in your groove, you're looking in the mirror going, hey, I'm a bad motherfucker at this. It was the same thing for me musically, like coming down this time last year and being in Texas and doing that run. Like, I left Texas last December, like, let's fucking go. Like, I'm here now. Like, I'm comfortable enough with my craft that I have the ability to, it's not just sounding okay, it's actually resonating. It's making a little force go out here over this crowd. And I was so excited. I'm like, and I was starting to build this like puppy power up. I'm like, all right, you're finally here. The time you've invested in this, your 10,000 hours. And then it's like, all right, turn out the lights, the party's over. So it's been hard for me to find where to put that outlet. You know what I mean? Male gigolo, herbal medicine supplier, you gotta pay your car insurance. You gotta have car insurance because if they pull you over, you might go to jail if you have a warrant. So, you gotta keep your shit up, but you gotta find different avenues. Yeah. Very good advice.
But yeah, I don't know. It's, we're in kind of a new era, and we've been in a new era for a while now as far as musicianship. I mean, we've been in the post CD era, the post like actual tactful listening to see. Like, for example, I made my EP 2 years ago, and I printed 100 copies of it, and I was trying to give them out to people. Like, I wasn't going to charge anybody for it. I just wanted to give them away. And most of the people that I was giving CDs to told me that they literally had no way to play CDs. They didn't have a drive anywhere in their possession. And I'm just like, well, shit, why did I get these made then? And
they make a great poster.
Oh yeah. I think I've seen a few of my friends. I have them like hung up and stuff. I have one in the frame that I look at. But yeah, it's like how do you make a career out of your art these days? Especially for a songwriter, because obviously you're not going to be able to rely. You can't rely on CD sales. You can't really rely on royalties, and you definitely can't rely on royalties that you're getting from streaming companies. And it kind of leads us all to like selling merchandise, and that's a point that I try to make, is that as artists, you're basically a glorified T-shirt salesman. And a lot of people that I say that to really take that the wrong way, but I think at its core.
Yeah, you're correct, though. You're absolutely correct. And there's folks selling a lot of T-shirts, a bunch of T-shirts, and paying their bills. But yeah, it's and when you talk about streaming, I remember a couple years ago, fairly recently, I was like, that's bullshit. A song's worth more and fucking less than a penny and blah, blah, because I didn't know. And then I get to hearing what folks are making, and I was like, damn. So if you can get the momentum, and, you can see the numbers. There's folks that don't have to leave the house, and they're making decent bucks. But for an artist that doesn't have a big following, you get a check for $100 every 3 months, you're just tickled to death, but there ain't no money in music. There ain't no money in music. They've always said that. This could have been a year I could have quit this year. I could have been like, fuck it. I'm going back to the railroad. I'm going to stop smoking weed. Fuck it. I'm done. And I was like, ain't no way. You got to die trying,
Yeah, my favorite saying, I guess, is success in the music industry is the exception. It's not the rule. Yeah. And I when I got down there and working for Matt, I got to be involved in the business side of it, even though it was back, 10 years ago, and it's changed so much. It's still the business of it. You know what I mean? And kind of understanding how you see the pandering going on and the
everybody's just trying to, trip who's ahead of you. And, back then it was, you get played on the ranch, it's a big fucking deal. And, all the bullshit that went along with all that. And then I moved to Lukenbach and learned that, that's not what it is. And then that's pretty much where I decided I was going to just worry about writing songs and living the life of it. Kind of. Hell, I play shows and don't even tell people my name. Like, you'll be after a show, they'll be like, "Hey, man, what's your name?" Like, "Jim, what's your name?" And they're like, "You don't say shit. Like, you got music?" I'm like, "No, man, I had some CDs." They're like, "You don't say shit." Talk a lot and sing a bunch of songs. I just failed to mention the, find me here and find me there bullshit of it. But,
Well, anybody that thinks that you don't talk a lot clearly doesn't really know the real Jim Yoss.
Oh, yeah. 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 I like your stories the most. I'm like, what the fuck? Listen to the song, man. The song is the story.
Well, isn't that what a songwriter is at the end of the day? A storyteller, weaving tales through lyric and song.
That and a bum, a fucking absolute bum that goes and lives with a chick for like 6 to 8 months and gives a bunch of false promises and fucking, cuts their grass during the summer season, then fucking heads back to Texas. That's yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Well, Jim, it's been very incredible having you on the podcast. I'm trying to think of other things to say, but I think we've covered a lot of ground here in the last almost hour. Is there anything that you would say? What?
We've been on here an hour?
Just about, yeah.
No shit. And all we did was talk about fucking country music. That's it, in Texas. We didn't talk about wrestling.
You want to talk about wrestling?
No, we'll do it some other time. Because I was like, man, Ryan's going to be impressed when I start name dropping like Ronnie Garvin and Barry Windham. Because when I was a kid,
Barry Windham, Texas wrestling legend.
Yeah. We had TBS. So I got to watch the old NWA days, like Dusty Rhodes and the Anderson brothers. I was engulfed in that shit, dude. We'd have wrestling matches in my little hometown. They didn't have a ring, but man, I DVC'd a lot of kids.
I actually was at a wrestling taping this past weekend. That was pretty cool. And it was in Greenville at this elementary school. What's it called? Like gym. And allegedly it was a gym that the Von Erichs used to wrestle at back in the 70s or whatever. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a guy whose mom dated a Von Erich.
Oh, really?
No.
There you go. Name dropping. See, we got connections. Me and Jim Yoss.
Man, I appreciate you having me on today. I hope it's entertaining for folks.
Yeah.
And, they get some positivity out of it or learn something. And everyone we mentioned, you can find them on the interweb. Check out their music.
I might do some linkage in the description or whatever. But
I got you.
Jim, Ben Davenport Band. I'll link your Instagram and any other websites of interest that you might want to plug. OnlyFans.
I have an OnlyFans. You just have to find me on the TikTok. I do an OnlyFans thing. You know what I mean? You got to pay the bills. It's freaky stuff on there,
Yep. Indeed. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim, for coming on.
Hey, I love you, man.
Yes, sir.
I love you, man. I'll see you soon.
Love you too, brother. All right, guys.
All right, man.
Anybody watching, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.